Welcome back to the Super-Centex Podcast. With me, as usual, as our tradition, DJ Ramirez, Chad Conine, and guys,
there's two full seasons with this lineup, by the way. So
that's true. That's true. Yeah. How are y'all doing?
I'm in the holiday spirit, you know. I just had a nice shower and shave while listening to Christmas music on my Bluetooth speaker, and it's just been one of those mornings. I'm well rested for once, so.
I also showered and shaved. I think we're ahead of DJ on that.
Y'all know I'm not a morning person.
That's okay. Like we were saying before we came on, you're young. You can sleep in.
Yeah, I had the hiccups. It took me 20 minutes to get rid of them.
Oh, I love it. So as Chad said, we are in the holiday spirit, and we asked Santa for this, and we got it on our Christmas wish list. We got Mart and Chilton, Class 2A, Division II state semifinals. So Wynn Emmons, who y'all know, performed some really impeccable research, sent it to me this week, and we've learned that this is the fourth all-time Central Texas meeting in the state semifinals. Never been one in the state championship game. Been a bunch in round 4.
That would be teams that we considered in our coverage area at the time.
Correct. And this is also including, like you said, teams that were in our coverage area at the time. So the 4 that Wynn listed there were Rosebud Lot versus Rogers, 2002. Calvert versus Abbott in 2002. By the way, I covered both of those games. I knew I had covered the Rosebud Lot Rogers game. I looked it up because I think I covered that Calvert Abbott game too, and I did.
Well, what were you doing in 2019 when Blum played Jonesboro?
I don't know.
It was just too important.
Maybe you covered it. Blum and Jonesboro in 2019 was the other one. Blum beat Jonesboro, went on to win state. How special does this one have a chance to be? What do you think?
DJ, I'll let you jump in first.
Go ahead.
It's two really good teams that I feel like match up pretty well in a lot of places. So I do think it's going to be really good. When I went out to Chilton yesterday, I mean, they were all excited. I got there and they were taking their team photo. And right before practice started, and you know, they know Mart's been there, but I don't think they're intimidated by that. You know, they're just they're happy to be there. And I did ask why the game was not in Waco, why we had to go all the way down to Belton, and they did try to get it in Waco. I think there just was other stuff going on that they couldn't.
No, you know what it was? And I think this is okay to say. I mean, Waco ISD on Friday night, and good for them for treating their kids and teachers to something.
Yes, although when you told me this, Chad, because you had also found this out last week talking to Kevin Hoffman, I must admit, I rolled just a bit, but go on.
Well, Waco ISD is showing the Grinch on the Jumbotron on Friday night for all of its, I guess, faculty and whoever wants to come. So I don't know, if you want to go watch the Grinch instead of going to this ball game, you can go see it at Waco ISD Stadium on Friday night.
And wasn't Midway? What was Midway hosting? I'm trying to remember.
No, Midway had some track construction, and they were just a little bit slow getting back, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, so DJ, one thing you said there jumped out at me, which was the very first thing you said, which was when you went out there, they were taking their team photo, which, if you think about it, that's a UIL thing. That's UIL saying, hey, you guys might be at state. We need your photo for the program, you know, the little including the little online program they do. You know, I mean, to me, that suggests, hey, you know, we expect to be playing one more week. You know, I mean, I'm sure every team in the state semifinals does it and sends it to the UIL, but nevertheless, I don't think Chilton goes into this game thinking, oh, we've got no shot. Not the way they're playing.
Yeah,
No,
no,
for
and
sure. They're beating people up.
Go ahead, DJ.
um because I'm working on the advance, and I asked Benny Hewitt if he could put me in contact with Italy's coach Mike Loveless, and I actually ended up having to text a different coach for that contact, because Hewitt was like, well, we were a different team at that point of the season. Like, yes, they beat Italy, but just barely. Like, that in week 2 they were not playing as well as they are now. I think he mentioned that it wasn't until around week 8 where they really kind of hit that point in the season where, okay, we're just gonna roll through everybody now. And kind of compared his team to the Super Bowl Giants. I don't remember what year that was, because I
remember that year. It
know.
was like in mid-December, you never would have thought the Giants were gonna, and then they just took off. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought that was a really cool tidbit, just how everything seems to be clicking and everybody's really excited, and it would mean a lot to them to not only win the semifinal but go into Arlington and probably win another title. I mean, I was looking out there, and they have the 2 big stones with the other 2 titles that they have up there, and a lot of those kids either had like a parent or a grandparent play on either one of those teams, so it would be pretty big for Chilton to get another title this year.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I have two ideas off that point. Number one, whoever wins this game has a monumental challenge in Albany, which is the number 1 ranked team, number 1 ranked ahead of Mart, which is doing something by itself in Class 2A these days. Right. But Albany is the defending state champion, and they're really good. They've got in fact, I think they have one kid who's committed to Texas Tech, so that's a big deal for 2A level 2. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Red Raider, okay?
No, but you're right. To have a D1 commit on the 2A level is impressive.
But, the other thing I was going to say just right off the bat was that I think we were all kind of looking at these 2 games on Friday going, man, that'd be cool if we could get them both and see that game. And the way the Chilton game started out, it was like, all right, check the Chilton box, right? And then Mart, we were going, oh, man, is this going to be a flop for Mart against Lovelady? Because it was 2010 at halftime. And I was, there watching it, shooting it, covering it. And Mart just did not look like a team that was going to get it together during the first half. And then they did. And the thing was, it's not that Mart looked that bad. It's just that Lovelady was so hyped. And I mean, their crowd was cheering every, 6-yard run and every tackle of less than 15 yards. It was like they were super hyped to try to beat Mart, as I'm sure everybody is. And Mart's had that target on their back a lot of times. And another thing about my trip out to Mart the other night is Kevin Hoffman was saying it's not very often that they play a team that is equal to them or even faster than them in the category of team speed. And he said that might be the case. Now, I get the feeling that Kevin was a little bit Lou Holtzian in that sense, sort of building up the opponent. But you know what? It's not hard to believe.
No, I was out at Chilton practice just a couple of weeks ago before their last game, and I mean, you can see the speed. It's there, so yeah. Well, so I want y'all to excuse me, fill in the blank here. Chilton wins if
Chilton wins if A, they don't make any mistakes, and B, they're faster than Mart. Like, mentioned, I think they tend to pass the ball more often than Mart does. Not that they can't run the ball, but they tend to pass more often, which I would say on a that Mart's secondary would be challenged by that. But then I saw a kid that played in JV the whole season get 3 interceptions in a game against Louisville. So yeah. I think it's one of those games where it's just whoever makes the least amount of mistakes is gonna come out the winner.
And you mentioned the passing. It seems like there's DJ, you and I get sent Chilton stats every week from Coach Red, the offensive coordinator, and it seems like Isaiah Red every week. I want to say he's like 11 of 13 for,
Yeah.
almost 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes. I mean,
Yeah.
his completion percentage is up there. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
always 12 of 13 or 11 of 14. I mean, it's they're efficient.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. He's 140 of 214 for the year, so that's better than 2/3.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Or it's right at 2/3. Yeah.
So Chad, what does Chilton have to do to win?
Well, I'll stay on the Isaiah Red beat and say he's got to not only make some big plays, but he's got to not get rattled. And that's what Mart did to Lovelady's quarterback the other night. He was really good in the first half, threw a couple of great passes for touchdowns. And then once they started getting after him, he just wasn't the same kid, and when they started getting after him in the second half, he wasn't the same guy. And, I think it's hard for high school players to have a short memory. And if you get nailed one time, to get up the next play and forget about the fact that you just got nailed. Or if you throw a pick, forget about the fact that you just threw a pick. But, Chilton, probably has to make this a 4-quarter game, has to hang in for 4 quarters with Mart. And when you get to that, third and fourth quarter, still be dangerous if you're Isaiah Red.
Yeah. So building on that a little bit, because I think you sort of hit on one of the things that would make Mart successful in this game. Mart wins if. What do you think?
If they continue to play the way that they play, I mean, Mart is Mart for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what we say all the time. If they continue to be physical and just use all of their assets, I think that because they're all pretty big guys. I think they do kind of outsize Chilton a little bit in certain areas. And Chilton's pretty physical too. Like that's when I mentioned that they match up pretty well in a lot of areas. They're both really physical teams, especially on defense. It'll take one missed tackle or for Chilton to be able to contend against Mart. So Mart is going to continue to do what they do really well, and it's be physical and disruptive. And even though their O-line is probably not what it was last season, they're still really good, and a lot of those O-line guys are also D-line guys. So if they just continue to be Mart, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, and Chad, you wrote about those linemen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, I interviewed Caden Villarreal and Monte Swainer the other day, and they were both really good. And then D'Angelo Rhodes as well, who is defensive end and wide receiver, which is a combination you see in the 2A level a lot, wide receiver, defensive end. Also, shout out to Richard Green, who, when I interviewed him the other day, he told me in school that day he'd written an article on me because the teacher told him to write an article on somebody. And he had seen the article that I'd written about Mart, and so he decided to do his article for class on me. So that was cool.
What did he find on Google? I mean, I could have given him some dirt.
Well, I told him to find me on Twitter and send me a copy of the article. I haven't seen it yet, but
gosh, send me a copy. I want to.
Another little tidbit I'll drop in here is that Armando Chavez is 4 extra points away from a national record for extra points made in a career. And Kevin Hoffman was telling me the other day that Jerry Forrest, who does a great job with pigskinprep.com, sent him an email at the beginning of the playoffs telling him, Armando was approaching this record. And maybe to Jerry's credit, he doesn't want somebody padding their stats to get to a record, and so that's why he waited so long. But Coach Hoffman was like, well, why did you wait till now to tell me, right? Because here's the thing. Coach Hoffman said there was, not including misses, there was probably 30 more extra points that Armando could have kicked in his career, because there were times when you go play somewhere, especially in the 2A ranks, where the goalposts back up to the woods or a cemetery or something like that, right?
Yes.
And he didn't want to kick extra point. He told the other coach, if we're going this way, we're going for 2 because I don't want to lose a football out there. He said, because those footballs are expensive,
Plus, who wants to venture into the cemetery to get the football? Let the ghosts have it.
Yeah. So those are just two great tidbits I got out at Mart the other night.
That's pretty good.
But to answer the question, Mart is successful if, and as DJ was talking and Bryce was asking the question, I was thinking about how Mart kind of has that thing in baseball where, they say hitting is contagious, right? Because I've seen Mart play a few times this year, and they'll go along and, they'll have to extend the metaphor, they'll have an inning or two where they just can't get anything going or whatever. And then all of a sudden, everything, boom, 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 boom. It was like the other night. It was like 73-yard touchdown pass, sack, 3 and out, touchdown, quick touchdown drive, block punt, touchdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go from down 20-10 to 31-20 in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think Mart, when it's going well, plays with a swagger, and that swagger is infectious.
Absolutely. So, that's what Chilton wants to not see at Mary Hardin Baylor's Crusader Stadium on Friday night.
Absolutely. So, besides, excuse me, the Mart-Chilton winner, we will also have Oglesby at state for the first time in program history. Pretty cool. To me, it's always cool whenever a team makes history in that way. I can remember back in 2019 when Blum did it for the first time. So, sixmanfootball.com, however, has installed Benjamin as a 41-point favorite for the state game over Oglesby. But to that, I would say, Oglesby is undefeated. They have won 10 of their 13 wins by the mercy rule. Picked up an impressive win over, a historically, tough Richland Springs team last week. So what will Oglesby need to do to ensure that this moment is not too big for them? That the stage is not too big. What do you think?
That's a big challenge. I think that to me, Oglesby became the team of destiny back earlier in the year when DJ was the only one that picked him to beat May, right?
Yeah.
Right. So DJ picked him to beat May, and she got that one.
Then she went against him later on, though. I think she learned her lesson, though. She's riding the Oglesby train now.
All right. Oglesby proved me and Bryce wrong. So let's see, and Richland Springs, like I was talking with Coach Hoffman the other night about this Oglesby team, and Richland Springs is a lot like Mart in their division. They're traditional power that's there all the time. So for Oglesby to beat them, I have no idea how you take a bunch of kids from Oglesby, Texas to Jerryworld and walk out on the field in a state championship game for the first time. And, it's kind of like there you go. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. They're going to walk into Jerryworld. And they're going to be like, Oglesby. And Jim Dixon's going to be like, hey, that field's 80 yards, just like it's back in Oglesby.
He's going to take a tape measure from the goalpost. And...
oh, man. Anytime we can reference Hoosiers, I am down.
Drunk Dennis Hopper will wander out on the field.
Good stuff. DJ, what do you think? I mean, what does Oglesby have to do to maybe win one more?
I really do think it's just to keep doing what they're doing and doing it well. I mean, we talk about it with every team. It's just, limiting your mistakes and limiting, I guess, that be excited, but remember, you're still trying to win a title. And they've played a lot of really good teams that played really deep into the season. I think, I remember talking to Matt Rogers at MCH and how they probably gave Oglesby their first challenge of the season early on. And the Tigers came out the winners, but, they went on and played some other really difficult teams. I think Calvert was a game where it got as, pretty close up and up until Richland. I think the Richland Springs game was the game where they allowed the most points this season. So yeah, I just think if they stay true to what they're doing, they should come out all right. I think it's pretty cool that they're in this. Obviously, I don't do a lot of 6-man football throughout the year. And like when I was at Jonesboro last weekend, I was trying so hard to keep up with the yardage because like it's, the field is shorter. They got the little markers, and I had the Gordon coach in the booth next to me, and they were already up like 35-0, and he was still yelling at the field. And I'm like, dude, I can't hear the PA speaker over you. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of algebra you have to do when you're covering a 6-man game.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier in the year, I think, on the podcast. The first non-midway game I did this year was a 6-man game between Live Oak and Vanguard. And I have covered enough 6-man games over the years that I go in with the mindset of, okay, it's 1st and 15. It's, these different rules, 80-yard field. All of that was in my head. But then you, as DJ said, you start, figuring up stats and things like that. And the thing that sort of threw me for a second was, oh yeah, the 40-yard line is midfield. They crossed that 40 and I started to want to write 43, and no, that's the 37-yard line, So yes, there are some tweaks there, but I'm, really excited for Jeb Dixon's team. Of course, we'll have a story on them, as they go to state next week, but be cool for to see how they do. And I would say, one way they keep the moment, from being too big is get the ball to Kyler Fawcett. That guy has a good chance to be our 6-man player of the year. He's had an incredible year. I want to say he had about 5 or 6 more touchdowns against Richland Springs last week. So yeah. And shout out to Ken Surrey and Rod Alot for driving out to Dublin and covering that game. So that was good. Got some good Oglesby coverage. So lastly, to close it out, of course, we've kind of done this recently where we've talked about the teams that aren't playing anymore. We had 3 teams bow out last week in Lorena, Marlin, and Jonesboro. Y'all covered some of those games. Actually, between the two of y'all covered all of those games. So what will you kind of remember most from that bunch about, for 2023? When you think back, 2 years from now and you go, 2023 Lorena, or 2023 Jonesboro, whatever, what are you going to take?
Well, the first game, the Lorena Franklin game in Franklin in the regular season, the district game, was one of the best games that I've ever covered, because you have a 2-time defending state champion. You got a really good, obviously a really good Lorena team, was state ranked a lot of the year. And I remember standing there on the sideline at halftime, and Coach G, the girls basketball coach, was down there, and we were kind of talking, and we were like, they better score on this first drive or they're sunk, because you're already down 14 points to Franklin. If you don't, and you get the ball to start the second half, if you don't score there and you get the ball to Franklin again, and they have a chance to go at 21 on you in the second half, and they're a really good ball control team, just go ahead and start the bus and get ready to go home, right?
Right.
But they did score on that drive. I think they had to make a play or two to extend that drive, and then they ultimately did score. And then, lo and behold, they get on a loose ball on the ensuing kickoff, and I don't remember if it was an onside kick or one of those plays where the squib kick randomly hits a kid and bounces, one way. I think that might have been what it was. But anyway, they got on that and tied the game, and then it was just a exchanging haymakers the rest of the way, and Lorena wins on walk-off field goal by James Webb. So just a fantastic game. Marlin, and I didn't get to see Jonesboro play this year. Marlin really built up a head of steam after having to forfeit their first game and losing their second one to Mart. And had a great team with a lot of good players in the right spots. Unfortunately, they just couldn't get a break or two that they needed against Toller last week.
Yeah. DJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, talk about Lorena and just being the team that doesn't quit, right? Like when they were down against a lot of really good teams, against Franklin, against Columbus. I think last week it was just like that. Franklin, having already lost to them, was determined to not lose to them again, and B, like you've got almost to the point where the defense doesn't come off the field, and then you have a ton of kids that play both ways, so you've got a ton of kids that have basically played every snap of the game, and so I think they just got worn down at the end of it all. And but it didn't feel like when China Spring lost, where you're kind of like it was sad, but it was kind of like hopeful. Like when I was talking to Jay, and I talked about this in my rewind, when I was talking to Jaden Porter, which, you know, what a difference that 4 months makes. And that kid had to go through an injury this year, so I'm sure that matured him a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there was also a moment where, you know, he and Braylon Henry were talking after the game, hugging each other, and almost felt like I was intruding. Like, you know, that there were just a lot of kids that really loved to play together and who really worked well together. And you know, but it felt hopeful, right? Like yes, you didn't get to the point that you wanted to get, but you know that for a lot of the underclassmen, especially, they're going to remember this game, this season, and they're going to come back and they're going to be pumped to keep playing, right? And I guess kind of same with Marlin. I was on Twitter earlier and saw that Ruben Torres got the district coach of the year, which, you know, I think he's been coaching those kids really well throughout, you know, the entire time he's been there, and really just making them believe in themselves and believe that they, you know, got what it takes to be a really, really good team. And, you know, that was another team that, even despite, you know, some tough breaks, obviously having to forfeit at the start of the season, losing to Mart, but then came back with just like this renewed, you know, force of confidence and you know, belief in themselves. So and you know, I Jonesboro was just also one of those teams that was well coached, and you know, they really liked playing with each other. And you know, it was kind of tough to see them lose the way that they lost on Saturday.
Yeah,
But
against a good team, obviously.
the
Those
team, yeah.
6-man games can get away in a hurry if you know, the other team's pretty good. So yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. So, you know, just personally, you know, 2 or 3 years from now, if I can still remember 2023, I will think back and I'll go, 2023 Lorena. Oh yeah, that was Braylon Henry's big year. I'll remember that. I'll remember, to me, you got to give a big shout out to Kevin Johnson and the way he kind of kept this train on the track. It's different when you're replacing a coach who's been there 5 or 6 years or 3 years or, you know, even 8 years. He was replacing a guy who had been there freaking 30 years. And that's different. And he just, you know, kept Lorena going forward. I think it helped that he had that continuity and knew those kids already from being the principal and from, you know, being an occasional assistant coach. Marlin, DJ's right. Ruben Torres doing a great job out there. So I've been putting together super-centex nominations and the credentials for those coach of the year candidates. And of course, Kevin Johnson and Ruben Torres will be among those candidates. Here's a little nugget for you. Looked this up. There's only been 3 coaches in Marlin's history, which has a pretty long history. We're talking like, you know, 100 years or whatever, that have had multiple double-digit win seasons. And he's done it 2 of his 3 years. You know, he's had 2
Was
11
Jerry
wins.
Malone one of those?
Jerry Malone had the most. Jerry Malone had like 7. The late Jerry Malone, we covered Jerry. He was great. Man, he was a fun coach to cover. And then the other one was back in the 50s. So you're talking pretty historic stuff at Marlin that Ruben Torres is doing. He's got that program believing, and good for him. And then I think DJ said it right. Jonesboro, just very consistent. Eddie Gallegos, I mean, I feel like they roll out of bed and win 10 games, so that program is one of our most consistent 6-man programs around here. But that doesn't mean each year isn't special in its own way. So a good run for Jonesboro, getting to the state semis for sure. And they've been to Jerryworld twice under Eddie. So, knocking on that door again. So good stuff. You guys will be down in Belton, Texas on Friday for
me, DJ, and Rod carpooling down there.
Load up the bus, baby. You're gonna ride.
I haven't picked this game.
Do what?
I have not picked for this game, and I was leaving Chilton yesterday. One of the assistant coaches was like, "Have you picked yet?" And I was like, "I don't know. I have to flip a coin."
Oh, I haven't picked either. But I tell you right now, I'm picking Mart. I don't want to deal with the finger wagging.
Don't want to deal with those Mart people in case. I haven't picked either. But yeah, I guess we'll all be doing that today. Man, I don't know. I think Chilton has a puncher's chance in this game, but it is hard to go against Mart. It's really hard to go against Mart. That said, I have a lead to play with, so nanny.
Yeah, you're gonna win. Okay, I can see you're gonna win.
We need to tell Win to open it up to the whole state. Maybe give y'all a chance to make up some ground on me.
I mean, still 5 games in 2 weeks. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. All right. See y'all.